I'm 75 now, and I can't remember anybody except the Queen bee.
Britain expected ceremony. It witnessed a declaration. Before millions of viewers, Princess Catherine reached toward the sapphire-and-pearl choker once worn by Diana, removed it from her own neck, and gently fastened it around Princess Charlotte. The young royal froze. Prince William lowered his eyes. And only a few seats away, Queen Camilla's expression changed completely. In a single, silent gesture, Catherine had transformed a family heirloom into a message the entire monarchy understood. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Catherine entered Westminster Abbey, knowing every glance would follow the necklace. The National Service of Compassion, an annual crown ceremony honoring people who protect vulnerable families, had brought royals, ministers, charity leaders, and families together. Yet the sapphire-and-pearl choker carried a weight no program could explain. Diana had worn it during unforgettable public moments, and Britain had come to associate those stones with her warmth, pain, and refusal to remain emotionally distant. The tribute to devoted mothers began quietly. Then Catherine moved. She lifted the choker from her neck, turned toward Charlotte, and fastened it gently around the girl's collar. The princess placed both hands on her daughter's shoulders and whispered, "Carry her kindness forward." The microphones missed the words, but those nearby heard them. Charlotte touched the pearls with trembling fingers, aware she was not receiving an ornament. She was being trusted with a legacy. Camilla stopped applauding. The Queen tightened her grip on the service booklet and looked toward King Charles, waiting for the monarch to interrupt. He did nothing. Charles remained still, his face unreadable, while William lowered his eyes. The prince understood. His wife had not merely honored his mother. She had connected Diana's emotional power directly to the next generation, and that decision would follow them beyond the abbey doors. Palace aides felt the danger immediately. The official ceremonial schedule, the written plan controlling each part of the service, contained no necklace presentation. Catherine had been expected to wear the piece and return it to secure custody. Stopping her now would have created a humiliation before millions, so officials remained frozen. Truth made the moment sharper. Camilla had privately demanded that Diana's choker be removed from the ceremony altogether. Catherine knew. She had entered the abbey carrying that objection with her. At the exit, the Queen stepped close. Catherine kept one hand on Charlotte's shoulder. William moved nearer. Charles watched in silence. "You knew what that would do," Camilla said. But to understand why those 6 words carried such anger, the people inside that corridor, and what each feared losing, had to be understood first. The necklace may have belonged to Diana, but the battle surrounding it belonged to the living. Catherine saw compassion. Charlotte felt responsibility. William carried grief, and Camilla sensed judgment closing around her once again. Each had entered Westminster Abbey, carrying a different version of the past. Each had left knowing something permanent had changed. The conflict was no longer about jewelry. It was about memory, motherhood, legitimacy, and who would shape the emotional identity of the future crown. Catherine had never met Diana, yet the late princess had followed her through every stage of royal life. Every warm gesture, every moment with her children, and every public struggle had been compared with the woman who came before her. Instead of running from that shadow, the princess had slowly accepted it as a duty. She believed Diana's memory should not remain trapped in grief. It should guide how the family served people who felt forgotten. Charlotte carried a different burden. She had been born years after her grandmother's death, but Diana's influence still surrounded her. Catherine wanted her daughter to understand that royal duty meant more than rank, ceremony, or position. The crown, meaning the responsibility carried by the monarch and the family serving beside them, demanded courage, kindness, and the strength to remain human under pressure. William felt pride, but fear moved beneath it. He remembered what happened when his mother became the center of palace conflict. Watching Charlotte touch the pearls forced the prince to ask whether Diana's legacy could be protected without placing another young girl inside the same storm. He admired his wife's courage, yet he knew courage often came with a price. Camilla felt that price closing around her. The queen had spent years trying to secure her place beside Charles, but Diana remained the one presence she could never persuade, defeat, or outlast emotionally. Seeing Catherine place that symbolism on Charlotte made her feel that history was being passed forward in a form that left no room for her. Catherine had expected the reaction. Before the service, she stood alone in her dressing room with the choker inside a velvet case. She dismissed an aide and remained silent until William entered. Then she looked at him and said, "Today cannot be about keeping everyone comfortable." William knew she would wear the necklace. He never knew she would give it to Charlotte. Later, inside a quiet palace sitting room, Charlotte removed the choker and placed it carefully in her mother's hands. She asked why Camilla had looked angry. Catherine knelt beside her and said, "Some memories comfort one person while hurting another." Then she told her daughter she had done nothing wrong. William waited until Charlotte left. "Did you mean for this to become a confrontation?" he asked. Catherine did not answer at once, because the truth began 3 nights earlier, when one sentence inside a private meeting turned a tribute into an act of defiance. 3 nights before the service, there had been no cameras, no crowd, and no applause. Only a polished table, 4 senior royals, and a single velvet case resting beneath the light. The meeting was meant to finalize ceremonial details. Instead, it reopened the most dangerous emotional fracture inside the House of Windsor. One comment about Diana's necklace caused Catherine to stop taking notes, William to look directly at Camilla, and the entire family to move toward a moment that would shock Britain. Catherine sat beside William at Clarence's house, while Charles and Camilla faced them across the table. The private royal residence had been chosen for a final planning meeting before the National Service of Compassion, a ceremony honoring people who support vulnerable families. The agenda covered seating, readings, charity patronages, and jewelry linked to earlier royal service. A senior curator entered with the sapphire-and-pearl choker and placed it between them. The official explained that Catherine had requested the piece because Diana had worn it during several deeply emotional public appearances. Charles approved the choice without hesitation. The king saw it as a tribute. The queen saw something far more dangerous. Camilla pushed the velvet case away. "That piece should be retired before it becomes a weapon against the living," she said. Catherine stopped writing. William folded his hands tightly. Charles stared at the necklace as though the past itself had entered the room. Then the princess set down her pen and asked whether Diana's memory had become something the palace was now expected to hide. Charles tried to calm the dispute. He called it a question of balance, but his words satisfied no one. Catherine heard avoidance. Camilla heard permission to continue. The queen argued that one piece of jewelry could turn a solemn ceremony into a public judgment against people still alive. William's anger remained controlled, which made it sharper. He reminded Camilla that the choker belonged to his mother's history and could not be erased because it caused discomfort. The prince never raised his voice. She answered that grief was now dictating public symbolism, and that the monarchy could not survive by reopening every old wound. Catherine made her decision in that silence. Before the meeting, she had intended only to wear the necklace. After Camilla's warning, the princess believed it had to represent continuity, not nostalgia. That evening, Catherine entered Charlotte's room and measured the choker against her daughter's ceremonial collar. The next afternoon, Charles saw them during rehearsal and understood at once. "Whatever you do," the king told her quietly, "understand that no one will forget it." 3 days later, the choker moved from that silent table to Charlotte's neck. And when Camilla demanded a private explanation after Westminster, not even Charles could stop the confrontation that followed. The palace door closed, and the public smiles disappeared with it. Camilla stood near the fireplace. Catherine remained beside the window, and no aides were permitted inside. For the first time, the two women confronted the meaning of Diana, without protocol protecting either of them. What began as a demand for an explanation quickly became something far more personal. Years of resentment, comparison, guilt, and carefully managed silence rose between them in a conversation neither woman could take back. Camilla had requested the meeting moments after returning from Westminster. William tried to enter with his wife, but Catherine stopped him outside and said she needed to face the Queen alone. The reception room offered no comfort. An official ceremony, meaning a public royal event controlled by an approved plan, had just been changed before millions, and she knew the argument would begin there. Camilla removed one glove finger by finger and placed it on the table. She accused Catherine of altering the service without consultation and placing Charlotte at the center of an emotional spectacle. The Queen insisted her objection concerned discipline, not Diana. Royal duty, she said, could not become personal theater whenever old grief returned. Catherine did not move. She reminded Camilla that the resistance had begun before the ceremony, when she demanded the necklace be retired. The princess said this had never been about procedure. It was about fear. Diana could still command love inside a room decades after her death, and the Queen could not bear what that love seemed to say about her. Camilla's anger cracked. She admitted that every mention of Diana felt like a silent accusation. The Queen had endured years of public hostility, but she refused to watch Charlotte inherit a version of history in which one woman became sacred and another remained condemned forever. Her voice broke, yet she did not look away. Catherine softened, but she did not apologize. She explained that placing the choker on Charlotte was never meant to humiliate Camilla. It was meant to prove that Diana's legacy would no longer be treated as dangerous. Compassion had to be inherited openly, not hidden because the past still caused pain. Camilla stepped closer and warned that symbols could destabilize a monarchy faster than declarations. The public would see Catherine choosing Diana against the present queen, and palace officials would be forced to respond. "Did you think of me at all?" she asked. Catherine paused. "Yes," she answered. "That is why I knew silence was no longer the kinder choice." Outside, William learned that a senior official had already drafted a statement distancing the crown from Catherine's decision. The confrontation had ended without peace, but the greater battle was moving beyond emotion and into royal power. By nightfall, the argument was no longer confined to two women. Palace secretaries, jewelry custodians, communications officials, and the king himself were forced to answer a dangerous question. Had Catherine crossed a royal boundary, or had she exercised authority that already belonged to her? The answer would decide whether the Diana gesture became a breach of protocol, or the defining act of a future queen who understood public emotion better than the institution around her. Pressure moved quickly through the palace. The communications office, the team responsible for shaping official royal messages, drafted a statement calling the necklace transfer a spontaneous family moment, with no constitutional meaning. Officials hoped to quiet the story, before newspapers turned it into a battle over Diana's legacy. Yet every word felt defensive, and William noticed immediately. The jewelry curator complicated matters further. In a documented custody note, the official confirmed that the choker had been released into Catherine's personal ceremonial care with Charles's approval. No written instruction prevented her from placing it on Charlotte. The princess had not taken the piece unlawfully. She had acted within authority the palace itself had already granted her. Charles sat alone with two proposed statements. Camilla expected her husband to condemn the gesture as unauthorized. William expected his father to defend Catherine's right to honor Diana. The king read both versions, placed them side by side, and signed neither. William entered with controlled anger. He told the private secretary that Catherine would not be described as careless, emotional, or impulsive. The prince warned that weakening the gesture would only prove the palace still feared his mother's memory. He would not allow his wife to carry blame for refusing that fear. The deeper truth soon emerged. During an earlier family transition meeting, Charles had granted Catherine broad discretion over jewelry linked to the Princess of Wales role, the position traditionally held by the wife of the heir. That authority gave her more control than Camilla had understood. The Queen had demanded restraint, but she no longer possessed the power to enforce it. Charles lifted his pen. Camilla waited across the desk. For several seconds, the monarch said nothing. Then he drew a line through the paragraph criticizing Catherine and replaced it with a single sentence. The ceremony had reflected the continuity of compassion across generations. The decision changed everything. Later, Charles opened an old photograph of Diana wearing the choker. William stood nearby as his father closed the folder. The past became destructive. The king said quietly, "Because we tried too hard to control how people felt about it." Charles had protected Catherine, but he had left Camilla isolated, and by morning, that silence would begin reshaping the family from within. The morning after the ceremony, Camilla awoke to a monarchy that suddenly felt less secure. Catherine's image dominated the front pages. Charlotte's hand rested over Diana's pearls. Charles had refused to condemn the moment, and William had stood beside his wife. For the Queen, the deepest pain did not come from criticism beyond the gates. It came from realizing that inside the family, the emotional center of gravity had shifted, and no title could force it back. Camilla remained inside her rooms while the palace tried to recover. The Crown's planned charity announcement, meaning an official message about royal support for public causes, disappeared beneath questions about the necklace. Communications staff cancelled several interviews because every broadcaster intended to ask whether Catherine had deliberately restored Diana's values to the heart of royal life. Catherine's standing rose with every hour. Messages flooded Kensington Palace praising the princess for connecting Charlotte to the grandmother she had never known. Charities supporting children, grief, and mental health called the gesture deeply human. William read several notes in silence, then told his wife that people had understood exactly what she meant. Camilla felt the opposite. She cancelled a private luncheon and refused every call except one from Charles. When an aide placed the morning newspapers beside her untouched breakfast, the Queen turned the top paper face down. Anger had carried her through the previous night. Now humiliation and loneliness had taken its place. Charles entered quietly and told his wife that defending Catherine had never been an attack on her. Camilla looked at the king and said he still did not understand. The princess had not needed to attack her directly. Diana's memory had entered the room first, and everyone, including him, had instinctively moved toward it. The wound deepened before midday. Palace advisors postponed Camilla's official portrait sitting, fearing that the image would be compared with photographs of Catherine and Charlotte. An official portrait, a formal image used to represent a senior royal, was meant to strengthen her public position. Instead, even that moment was now being managed around Diana. Catherine refused to let fear reach her daughter. When a courtier suggested Charlotte avoid discussing the necklace at her next youth engagement, the princess rejected the instruction. She told the girl to answer honestly if asked. William supported her without hesitation. Late that evening, Camilla finally turned over the newspaper. She studied Catherine fastening the choker around Charlotte's neck, but her eyes did not remain on the pearls. They fixed on Charles applauding in the background. The Queen removed her glasses as tears gathered. Then she made a decision. Stripped of public authority and private defenses, Camilla would ask Catherine the one question no palace advisor could answer for her. There were no secretaries, no prepared statements, and no royal titles spoken inside the garden room. Camilla arrived first. Catherine entered alone. For several seconds, neither woman sat down. The confrontation at Westminster had been about Diana, but this conversation was about something more difficult. Whether two women could acknowledge the pain between them without surrendering their own truth. What followed did not erase the past, yet it changed the meaning of the gesture and stopped the family fracture from becoming permanent. Camilla had requested the meeting without anger. She chose a private garden room and made one condition clear: no aides, no husbands, and no written notes. Catherine entered expecting another demand for an apology. Instead, the Queen asked one question: why did Charlotte have to be part of it? Catherine listened before answering. She said Diana's legacy could not remain frozen around William and Harry's grief. Charlotte deserved to know her grandmother as more than a tragedy. The girl had to understand the compassion, courage, and emotional honesty that made Diana matter to people far beyond the palace. Camilla lowered her voice. She admitted that seeing the choker on Charlotte had felt like watching history close around her forever. The Queen feared that the younger generation would inherit a moral verdict before understanding the human failures behind it. Diana would become pure memory. She would remain the woman blamed for breaking it. Catherine did not dismiss that pain. She told Camilla that preserving Diana's memory did not require erasing anyone else. But protecting the Queen's comfort could not require Diana's disappearance. Both truths had to exist inside the same family, even when neither truth felt easy. Camilla remained silent for a long moment. Then she made a decision no palace statement could have forced from her. She said she would no longer oppose Catherine's use of Diana's jewelry or attempt to restrict Charlotte's connection to her grandmother. The Queen offered no public endorsement, but she withdrew the private resistance that had caused the crisis. Catherine placed the empty velvet case on the table. She explained that the choker had already been returned to secure custody, meaning the protected royal collection where important heirlooms are stored between official uses. Camilla rested her hand on the lid, closed it, and slowly pushed the case back. Catherine accepted it without triumph. For the first time, both women sat in silence, without the silence feeling hostile. Their understanding remained private, but at their next public engagement, Camilla would make one restrained gesture beside Catherine, and Britain would see their confrontation in an entirely different light. By the next morning, one photograph had become Britain's national conversation. Catherine's hands rested on Charlotte's shoulders. Diana's pearls circled the young princess's neck. Camilla sat only feet away, visibly stunned. Newspapers called it inheritance, defiance, healing, and revenge. Yet the public response was not controlled by palace statements. It was shaped by grief that had never disappeared, and by a new generation recognizing the same emotional language that once made Diana impossible to ignore. Every major broadcaster led with the ceremony. Commentators argued over whether Catherine's act had been maternal, political, or symbolic. The palace statement, meaning the official message released to explain the royal family's position, failed to calm the debate. Its careful wording could not compete with the image of Charlotte carrying her grandmother's legacy. Older viewers remembered Diana wearing the choker during some of her most emotional public appearances. Younger audiences focused on Charlotte receiving it. Catherine stood between those generations, linking unresolved history to the monarchy's future. That connection made the gesture powerful, because it turned private grief into a promise the public could understand. Sympathy quickly divided. Many praised Catherine's courage, while others felt compassion for Camilla. The Queen's expression reminded Britain that royal history did not exist only in books. Living people still carried the pain of choices made decades earlier, and she remained trapped inside a story she could never fully rewrite. William watched the footage during a morning briefing. The prince said nothing until the moment Catherine placed the necklace around Charlotte's neck. Then he quietly admitted that Diana would have cared less about the pearls than about the promise attached to them. His mother had always believed duty meant reaching people emotionally, not merely standing above them. The London Chronicle captured the mood with one front page. Charlotte touched the choker beneath the headline, "Diana's heart passes to a new generation." A smaller image showed Camilla watching from her seat. turning one family moment into a national argument about memory and forgiveness. By afternoon, a crowd gathered outside Kensington Palace. A woman placed flowers near the gates with a card reading, "For Diana through Charlotte." A young girl added a blue ribbon while her mother pointed toward the newspaper image. White roses followed, and the gathering became an unexpected tribute. Camilla changed the story hours later. At a children's literacy engagement, the Queen arrived beside Catherine, briefly touched her arm, and allowed the princess to walk ahead. Cameras caught everything. Britain read the gesture as acknowledgement, not defeat. The nation had delivered its emotional response. Now the monarchy had to accept what Catherine's decision had permanently changed about the crown. In the end, Catherine's gesture did not remove a queen, crown a child, or rewrite the line of succession. It accomplished something more human and, perhaps, more permanent. It ended the palace habit of treating Diana's memory as a dangerous force that had to be contained. By placing the choker around Charlotte's neck, Catherine declared that love could be inherited without shame, grief could become service, and the monarchy's future did not have to survive by hiding its past. Catherine had never intended to defeat Camilla. The princess had refused to let fear, discomfort, or old rivalries decide how Charlotte understood her grandmother. Diana's compassion was no longer a forbidden subject. It had become an inheritance, carried not through rank or ceremony, but through the promise to notice people who felt ignored and comfort those who were suffering. Charlotte understood that the necklace was not a prize. Catherine told her daughter that wearing it did not make her more important than anyone else. Royal privilege, meaning the opportunities and influence given to members of the family, only mattered when it was used to serve others. The pearls carried beauty, but they also carried responsibility. William finally found peace in that truth. The prince admitted that seeing Charlotte wear his mother's choker had hurt, but not because it reopened the past. It showed him that Diana's influence had survived, without remaining trapped inside tragedy. Her memory had moved forward, and his daughter would carry its kindness rather than its pain. Camilla reached a quieter conclusion. The Queen would never feel comfortable with every comparison or every reminder of Diana. Yet she accepted that resisting the past only gave it greater power. By ending her opposition, she chose dignity over another battle she could never win. Charles made that understanding permanent. In a private recorded conversation with William and Catherine, the king confirmed that Diana-related heirlooms would no longer be hidden to avoid controversy. They could be used by the princess and, when appropriate, introduced to Charlotte as part of the family's emotional and historical inheritance. That evening, Catherine returned the choker to its velvet case, while Charlotte watched. Before the lid closed, the young princess asked whether she would wear it again. "One day," her mother answered, "when you understand what it asks of you." Catherine handed the case to the royal custodian, the official responsible for protecting important family heirlooms. Charlotte took her hand. William waited nearby, visibly moved. Nothing remained unresolved. Diana's memory had found its place in the monarchy's future. Camilla had accepted its permanence, and Catherine had shown Britain exactly what kind of queen she intended to become. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.